Hi everyone, I'm Beth Bird. I am the Local Nature Partnership and Nature Recovery Manager at Devon County Council. Quite a new title, new position. And thank you very much to all of you for spending a bit of your evening with us tonight to learn a little bit more about the local nature recovery strategy for Devon. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. Bear with me while I get it up and running. Oh, it's been a bit slow, sorry. Bear with. Can you see the slideshow screen now? Yeah, wonderful. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Devon Local Nature Recovery Strategy, also known as LNRS. So tonight I'll just go through a little bit about what the LNRSs are, how we developed it for Devon, and then I'll take you through the strategy itself and the mapping, and show you how we would think that maybe community groups might use the LNRS. So some of you may have come along to some of our presentations during the public consultation and the warm up to the LNRS. So there might be a little bit of repetition here, but I'll also be highlighting the differences that we've made post public consultation. So as a bit of background, what are LNRSs? Well, they're a new statutory plan under the Environment Act of 2021. They're all funded by DEFRA, and they're designed to help reverse the declines in nature by identifying what we need to do and where we need to do it. There will be 48 of them across all of England, with the goal of creating a nature recovery network across all of England. And they're in various stages of being published, with I think over half of them being published now, and most of them will be published by the end of the summer. And for each of the areas for the local nature recovery strategies, they were each appointed a responsible authority to lead on the development of the LNRSs. And for Devon, that was Devon County Council. And as part of the support for that, we have supporting authorities as well. And for supporting authorities, it's all of the local authorities within the LNRS area that aren't the responsible authority. So for us, we've got 13 of them because Natural England is one of the supporting authorities as well. And then we've got all the local authorities, including the two national parks as well. So we've developed this in collaboration with a huge number of people, and it's a practical tool that can be used to help everyone and used by everyone to support nature wherever you are across Devon. And this strategy is for Devon as a whole, so including Plymouth and Torbay. And it's there to help guide actions, funding, and land use planning. It's there to inform where best to carry out biodiversity net gain using developer funding. So it's there to help guide that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And it's all about positive opportunities for nature. So it's not about applying restrictions, it's all about positive opportunities, and it is designed to be for everyone across Devon. So what do the LNRSs have to include? Well, they've got two statutory elements, a statement of biodiversity and a local habitat map. So the statement of biodiversity includes a description of the strategy area, opportunities for recovering and enhancing biodiversity in that area, the priorities for recovering and enhancing biodiversity, bearing in mind the contribution that this can have to wider environmental benefits, and the actions we need to carry out in order to achieve these priorities. So for Devon, we decided to make this a website. And the reason we did that was because we wanted it to be as accessible as possible to as wide a range of people as possible. So we engaged with a copywriter and a web designer in order to try and do that. And with the website, we've added additional information to try and make it as useful a resource as possible. So we've got a nice story alongside the strategy itself. And I'll go through that in a little bit. And then the local habitat map, that has to have designated sites and statutory irreplaceable habitats, a section that has areas where actions to manage and restore and create habitats is most needed, and areas where restoring nature can achieve other priorities such as water quality, flood control, and connecting people to nature. And again, for Devon, we decided to have a standalone mapping service for this. So some of you might be familiar with the Devon Environment Viewer, which is DCC's mapping tool. Well, we wanted to have a few functionality that the Devon Environment Viewer didn't have at the moment, which is why we created a new viewer. And I'll take you through it in a minute. And the areas where the actions to manage and restore and create habitats where they're most needed, that's the bit that links into biodiversity net gain. So with biodiversity net gain, it's about with new developments, they have to provide 10% of biodiversity. And if they're carrying out the actions that we have suggested within the LNRS, within the area of the LNRS where we've suggested it, then they can have a strategic uplift for the biodiversity. So it's not a restriction. It's not saying that development can't take place in those places. And it's not saying that biodiversity net gain can only take place in those places. It's just about incentivizing that development money to go into that area. But I'll go through the mapping a little bit later on as well. So what can the LNRS be used to do? Well, it's there to help guide funding, things like environmental groups. If you include in your funding bids things about the LNRS and pointing out which priorities you're working towards and which actions you're including in your work, that you will have access to funding that you might not have otherwise had access to. And that's certainly the case, as Joe was saying, for our Wild About Devon grants later on this year. And it's about identifying areas where the compensatory habitats for BNG would be best located, as I mentioned before with the local habitat map. And it's for everyone to make informed land use decisions, which can help restore wildlife across Devon and help guide local plans and development management decisions. So the LNRS sits in between national plans and more detailed local plans. So we've tried to make it as detailed as possible, but as you'll see, it's a lot of information, and we know that we won't have been able to make the location-based information as detailed as local plans can, but the local plans and national plans have fed into the LNRS. And going forwards, the LNRSs should be used to inform the local plans and national plans as well. So we were advised earlier this year that local plans going forwards must take account of LNRSs. So that's changed because previously it was have regard to. So it's just strengthened what the LNRSs are and how it has to be considered within local plans. So they're also there to help design green spaces and integrate wildlife into new developments, ensuring that it links with habitats in the wider landscape, and to help achieve national environmental targets and to inform more detailed national plans. So how was the Devon LNRS developed? Development started in 2022, and throughout the period of development, we've had guidance from DEFRA come through in drips and drabs. But one of the elements of guidance that they were quite prescriptive on was how we needed to include species within the LNRS. So with that, what we had to do was make a list of all the species within the LNRS area that were threatened or that need particular action. So in order for us to do that, we engaged with a lot of species experts within the area to advise us on which species were relevant for that list. And that list that we've created is called the Devon the Devon Species of Conservation Concern list. So that's our long list of all the species that are relevant to the LNRS. That's not to say that the LNRS won't have beneficial impacts to other species, but these are the ones that the LNRS focuses on. And then from that list, we had to make a shorter list, which we have called the Devon Special Species List, and they're species that needed particular action or needed attention brought to them. And we've also got some groupings, Devon Special Species Groups, which are groups of species that Devon is particularly important for. But there's more information on that on the website so that you can digest it in your own time as well. We also engaged with a lot of habitat experts, particularly for the mapping. So the mapping, we did go down a road of starting with modelling for the mapping, and we decided that it wasn't giving us a true enough picture for Devon. So we went back and we worked with experts and using soil information in order to map the habitats in Devon. And we also engaged with various different contractors to help lead various different elements of the LNRS. So we got involved with a water specialist. We set up a farming steering group. We had mapping experts involved, and it was all done in collaboration with our supporting authorities. We had an officers group for the supporting authorities that met monthly in order to ensure that all the local sensitivities and local data was being included in the LNRS and being addressed. And the LNP, so the Local Nature Partnership, had guidance over the LNRS throughout its development. So it was a regular feature on the LNP meetings throughout the past 3-4 years. And with that, we've had two LNP conferences that have had a focus on the LNRS. So the first one in 2023 introduced what the LNRS is, how we were thinking about going about developing it. And then in 2025, we were showcasing what we'd done so far, talking about the actions and priorities that we picked out and developing that further with the LNP partners. We also used the initiatives within the LNP, so Wild About Devon, NEED, which is the Network of Environmental Educators in Devon, and Naturally Healthy, which is our initiative about connecting with nature for health reasons, to ensure that that was well addressed within the LNRS. And we used it to make sure that hopefully to make sure that the LNRS is accessible to those audiences and useful for them, how they might use them as an educational resource, how they might use them in their community work. And we also included an intertidal group. We initiated one because the LNRS goes to low mean watermark. So we had a group that was there to discuss the intertidal areas. And we used other existing LMP initiatives like DISI, which is the Devon Invasive Species Initiative, to make sure that we were addressing invasive species. And we have the Woody group that overlooked the woody section of the LNRS for us. And then in autumn last year, we had a 6-week public consultation period. And through that time, we had in-person events, we had various webinars, including LNRS ambassador training, which we found hugely helpful. So if anyone on the school was part of that, we are very grateful for you. And we will be running some ambassador training sessions now that we've published as well. So if you guys are interested in being ambassadors for us, that just means knowing a bit about the LNRS to be able to chat about it with people as you're going about your daily work, or potentially attending events to sort of represent the LNRS. That would be super helpful, and we'll share the LNRS ambassador information with you in due course. And through that public consultation, we had 2 sets of questionnaires that people could fill out. We had a short one, which would sort of give us a brief sort of feel for the LNRS in general. And then we had a longer one that you could feedback in detail about various different elements of the LNRS. And through that, we had over 250 responses. And we also, through the public consultation period, had further in-depth discussions with various different organisations and people like the National Landscapes, the Woodland Trust, the Wildlife Trust, things like that, in order to make sure that they were happy with the product we were providing. And at the end of that consultation period, we took on that feedback, and then we had a sign-off period with the supporting authorities. So they had to provide sign-off before we went to public consultation, and then again before we finally published the LNRS. So it went to them in January, and it was quite a long period for sign-off because we've got so many supporting authorities, and it went to Cabinet for a lot of them. And at the end of April, they said they were happy for it to go out to public consultation, and we published on the 13th of May this year. So the next step, so far we've been in the preparation phase of the LNRS, and the next steps will be the delivery phase. At this moment in time, we're going through promoting the LNRS, making sure that people know about it, training people up to use it. We'll be running training sessions with the various different planning authorities in order that they know how to use it for planning decisions as well, and embedding it into all departments within DCC and beyond to make sure that the LNRS is being considered in all aspects of our work. We do have a communications pack like we did for the public consultation period that's got things like a little short snippet that you can include in newsletters, as well as a full news article as well. And it's got little social media snippets. And we will, over the next few months, be producing social media snippets that tell you a little bit more about the LNRS and focus in on different elements of it. And we will be transitioning to the delivery phase. So through the LMP, we will be looking through the LNRS and choosing elements of it that we think are priorities to start off with. And then the hope is that in spring we'll have an LMP conference where we launch those sort of priorities within the LNRS and help people take that forward. So next is to show you the tools and the materials. So just wanted to draw your attention to it is the website and the mapping. And then we've also got a guidance note for planners, which I think everyone seems to be very interested in seeing. So it's just to highlight that they're links. We can share these slides afterwards, but I will take you through the website now. I'll just bring that up on screen. Can you all see the website now? Great. So this is the LNRS. As I said, we've produced it as a website. It is quite a big website. This is the home page that we've got here. And it's got a little bit about the LNRS here, and then tiles in order to navigate through the LNRS. So you've got the option to be able to navigate through using the tabs at the top here, or these tiles here. As part of the feedback we had from the public consultation was that because it was a website, it didn't feel that much like a strategy. So we tried to reflect a sort of feel for a strategy up here with the tabs. So we've now got a summary tab up the top here, a contents page, and an appendices like you would have in a strategy, as you'd expect. As it is quite a big website, we do recommend starting on the Start Here tab. And the Start Here tab has a vision for what a nature-rich Devon looks like, a bit of an explanation like I'm giving you now on how to use the LNRS, going through the various tabs that we've got. We've got, on all the pages, we've got a little menu down the side that helps you navigate through the page. So so that you can zip through as to wherever you need to be. We've got a bit here that tells you a little bit about what the LNRSs are, as I've just done with the presentation. And then we've got a section here about who this strategy is for. And the important bit is that it's for everyone. There's elements of the LNRS that can be used by everyone for everyday life. But we've also got more tailored advice for various different sectors as well. But this gives a little bit of an example of how people might use it. And we have on the farming one got a little video of a farmer talking about the LNRS. And our hope is that we will continue to work with various different parties in order to create videos that we can add to the website. And then the next bit we've got here is talking about the geographical area. So as I mentioned, this LNRS is for Devon as a whole, including Torbay and Plymouth. And then this is about it being a nested suite of plans, that it feeds into the local plans and that they take account of it as well. Here's a section about why we need the LNRS, a bit of information about how it was developed, and there's further information on that in the appendices because it was a big bit of work. We had a lot of people involved, so there's a lot of information on that as well. We've got a little section here about delivery and monitoring. So at the moment, DEFRA are still going through and providing us guidance on monitoring, but it's part of our role is to try and help people work together in order to deliver the actions and priorities within the LNRS. And then we've got a section here about share what you're doing. So we know that there's loads of great work happening across Devon that's supporting nature recovery already. And we want to highlight that. So we've got a nature recovery delivery map. So that's where people can add their own projects to it, where it can be something small like making a pond, making a wildflower within your own garden, or it can be much bigger projects. So if you're several groups linked up together and you're working on a stretch of river and doing, habitat restoration around the river, or even landscape scale projects, anything that you're doing, you can add to that map. And it's just a little bit of a questionnaire to fill in. And it's there to help us for future iterations of the LNRS, but also for us to know what's going on out there at the moment and try and connect people up where need be. Oh, I should have mentioned previously as well. So the LNRS, now that it's published, it is static until we are told that we are allowed to update it by the Secretary of State. So that's all the statutory elements within it. We can still add things like the videos of people using it and toolkits on how to use it. But the actions and priorities are static until we're told to review it, which can be any time within the next 3 to 10 years. So the next part of the website is the summary. So this bit again has our vision and a bit of an overview of Devon's wildlife and talking about what a nature-rich Devon looks like. So these are little tiles that focus in on different sort of ecosystems of Devon, and you can click on it and it gives you a little bit of an example of the mapping and links you back through to the relevant web pages to find further information on that as well. Then we've got here's our high opportunity areas. So these are the areas that we've mapped for actions where actions are most needed across Devon. So this is a representation of all of those high opportunity areas in one, but for detail, obviously you'd have to go through to the mapping to see it. We were given quite a strong steer when we were developing the LNRS that they didn't want our local habitat mapping to cover more than, or much more than 50% of Devon as a whole. So that did restrict us quite a lot. There's a lot of important habitats within Devon, but it meant we had to be very targeted with which ones we chose to map. So I'll show you later, but some, for example, we don't have mapped species zone local habitat map. And the main difference there is it just means that it doesn't attract the strategic significance multiplier for biodiversity net gain. So it's not saying that these areas that are mapped are any more important than the other elements of the LNRS. It's just for that BNG element. The next bit we've got here are actions that are needed across Devon. So these are sort of cross-cutting actions that were coming up time and time again for the various different species, for the various different habitats. And again, these are little tiles that you can click on, and it gives you information about what habitats are relevant and an action for that area as well. Then we've got supporting actions here. So as part of the development for the LNRS, we were told that the actions should be on the ground delivery based actions, but we know that it's so important to have things like knowledge and data research, monitoring, data sharing, that kind of thing, that we have to be able to say about it. So that's just supporting actions that we know need to take place in order to help support nature recovery. And then we've got here the key landscapes for Devon special species. So here it's just broken up into sort of geographical areas within Devon. And again, they're little tiles that you click on that give you some information about what the species are within those areas and habitats within those areas so that you can go and find out more. So this is a nice way in if you're not sure where to start with the LNRS, you can go to the area of Devon that you're in and click through and see some information. Next, we have habitats and species. So here you can either hover over and go directly to which habitat or species you're interested in. But if you click on it, you come through to the tiles for the habitats overview and the species overview. And here we've got some information. If I clicked on the habitats one now, this is about how we developed the habitats profiles that we've got within the LNRS. So this explains a little bit how we've gone for the Launton principles, going for bigger, better, and more connected. It explains a little bit about our Devon special species and the wider benefits that habitats can achieve. And then we've got here the list of all the habitats that you can click on and go through to the web pages. So I'll just click on one for as an example to show you what a habitats page looks like. The species and habitats pages are quite similar, but there are some differences. So they've all got a few facts up the top here and a call to action button here that takes you directly to the priorities and actions, which are the statutory requirement elements of the LNRS. But the species pages have a little snapshot up here, which tells you what a wildlife rich habitat looks like for that habitat, tells you about the special species that are relevant to that habitat and the UK significance. So whether it's a priority habitat, statutory or replaceable habitat, and the wider benefits that that habitat can have. And then we've got a little about section that tells you a little bit about the habitat. It's got key pressures and opportunities. So where possible, we've put as many things in drop downs as we can so that if that information is not relevant to you, you can zip past it, but that the information is there if you want it. And this is here shows you our glossary terms. So if there's a little I next to a word, if you hover over it, it'll bring up the definition for that word. And this little key on the side here lets you know that there's a glossary term on the page. And you can also see the full glossary within the appendices. And then we've got a little bit here about what you need to do and where. So again, you can navigate using the menu at the side. So this is the priority for the habitat. And then we've got the actions below it. So most of the actions have an overarching action and then broken down into smaller actions on how you achieve that broader action. And then we've got, as I said, survey and awareness, which is important for, but they're just considered slightly differently within the statutory element of the LNRS. And then we've got here other relevant actions. So this links you through to other habitats or species pages that are relevant to the habitat or species page that you're on, so that you can find out more information. And then at the bottom of what we need to do, we've got where we need to focus action. And this links you through to the mapping. So here we've got a list of the layers that would be relevant for you to open up in the mapping. And you can click through here and it takes you to the mapping page, and then you know which layers to open up. Then we've got the inspiration section. So again, this is to highlight all the good stuff that we know is already happening across Devon. And these are some examples of the work that's happening. And then below that, we've got where to visit. So as part of the work we did with the LNRS, we updated the Explore Devon website to include more wildlife and nature areas. And this website is really good to let you know how to get to them and which areas are easily accessible. And then we've got a find out more section. So this goes through to live websites, organisations that are relevant for the habitat or species. And that's because we thought that was really important, because as the LNRS is going to stay static now that it's published, we want people to be able to find an avenue to go through to live and up-to-date information. And we will be using the LNP, the Local Nature Partnership website as well, to sit alongside the LNRS to help keep things up to date. And then we've got some information here about any additional information varies on the various different pages, and the photo credits, which are very important as well. So next I'll take you through to the species. So on the species overview tab, it tells you a little bit more about the Devon species of conservation concern. So that's the long list of species within Devon that need action or are threatened, that have been included within the LNRS. And that is an interactive spreadsheet so that you can filter it, so that if you're only interested in a particular species, you can filter it, or a particular location. But there's an instructional video on how to use that spreadsheet as well. Then we've got a bit more information about the Devon special species. So that's the shorter list of species that needed particular attention or action, and the groups of Devon special species, which are groups that are important for Devon. or that Devon are important for, rather. And then here we've got a link through to the geographical species overview page. So that again takes you through geographical regions to let you know which species are relevant for those areas. And then you've got, again, the tiles of the species. So again, I'll just click on one as an example. So this is the bees, ants, and wasps page. Again, you've got the call to action button here and some facts about them up here. You can scroll through the images as well. Then we've got the about section and the key pressures and opportunities again, and then the what you need to do and where. And with the species pages, that's a little bit different to the habitats pages. We've tried to group them where we can so that you can see the actions and where you need to do things as easily as possible. But if you're interested in finding out more about the species themselves, you can click on the read more information little buttons and it brings up more information. So for example, this is the rare carded bumblebees and it brings up the two species and tells you a little bit more about them as well. And then for the East Devon crumbling cliff bees, that one, it's got its own page here. So that links you through to another page that is a specific area along our coast that's important for invertebrates. And then it's got the information here and it breaks it down for the different species. So there are your bees with more information about them there. And then we've got an inspiration. At the bottom, then again, we've got the where to focus action. So it's broken up by section of species for where to focus action, and it'll tell you again which layer would be of relevance to open within the mapping, and it takes you a link through to the mapping page as well. So we've got various different species on here. And then again, we've got actions that cover for all of the bees, ants, and wasps. Then we've got an inspiration section again, the where to visit bit with a link to the countryside code. So this is an example of a couple of places that are good to visit for these species, and again, a link to the Explore Devon website. And then we've got the find out more section again. And again, these vary depending on if they're links out to other websites or organizations that helped us prepare the LNRS. And then we've got a list here to show you not all of the species that are on the Devon Species of Conservation Concern list have a mention on the website because general actions are appropriate to them. So here you've got a longer list of the bees, ants, and wasps that are relevant within that species grouping. And then we've got here as well, particularly with this group, we found that there were some species that might be important to include in the LNRS, but at the moment we just don't know enough information about them. So we've highlighted them here so that in hopes that we can do some research and surveying for them prior to the next iteration of the LNRS. The next section we've got up the top here is the wider benefits. So these are the bits that wider benefits for habitat management. So things like air quality, carbon sequestration, connecting people and nature, and water quality and flood risk. So these pages are laid out in a similar way to the species and habitats pages. I'll click on the connecting people and nature, as I assume that's relevant for most people in this group. And again, it's got some information here, the jump to what we need to do and where, a little bit about, and this takes you through to the various LMP initiatives and the Explore Devon and Devon Connect websites. And then we've got the priority here as well, and I'll show you the mapping for the communities when I show you the mapping in a little bit. And here are the actions for it as well. And again, it tells you a little bit about the mapping that we've done and got some inspiration case studies, as well as where to visit as well. And then we've got the find out more that links through to various different websites and creating accessible wildlife rich green spaces. It's got more information about it, what we've done with the mapping and how you can, what the actions we propose for those mapping areas. So the next tab is the mapping tab. This one has a link through to the viewer. That's how you get through to the mapping. We do recommend that you look through the instructions on how to use the mapping before you do use it. An explanation about mapping is for guidance only. We've mapped it as well as we can, but we know that we won't have had the finer detail for certain locations. So we didn't want to be prescriptive regarding land use decisions. So ground truthing and use of expert ecological advice is always needed. Then we've got how to use the viewer. So we've got an instructional video that takes you through the mapping, but we've also got some written instructions here as well. And then again, we've got a highlighting the delivery map that I mentioned before. And there's a little form here to this. I'll just show it to you quickly using Survey 123. Hopefully some of you will already be familiar with Survey 123. But it's just a little questionnaire where you can pop a little pin on the map, give a bit of explanation about what it is. The questions are all optional, so you can choose what level of information you want to be putting forward. And we may well be updating this mapping following the guidance from DEFRA on monitoring in case there's some more information we want to pop in there to gather while we can. Then we've got a bit here about what's on the viewer, the contents of it. So this is the designated sites and statutory irreplaceable habitats. So that's one of the statutory layers. So this is a little snapshot of what that looks like. Then we've got the high opportunity areas. So in DEFRA talk, it's called map measures. So that's where we've put actions to achieve the priorities. That's within this section of the mapping. And this pulls out just a few different aspects of that. But I'll go through this in a minute when I show you the mapping. Then we've got the species opportunity areas. Oh, I should say, sorry, the statutory layers have the local habitat map written after them here like this. So that's the layers that you know are the statutory staying static layers that are from the LNRS. These are layers that we created for the LNRS, but are not part of the statutory mapping. So we've got the species opportunity areas. So we don't have maps for all of the species that are included within the LNRS. It's just certain species that while we were developing it, the experts knew there were areas that if we wanted to focus action for these species, this is where we should do it. So we might be adding to this as we go through, as we learn more. Certainly for the next iteration, we'll be adding to it. But as you can see, this is mostly butterflies, I think, moths and butterflies we've got up here. As you can see, they're quite large mapped areas. And it's not that we're saying that we want all of that mapped area to become the perfect habitat for that species. But if you're wanting to look after the marsh fritillary butterfly, which is this green one here, these green patches are the areas that would benefit the most. And that's where we want to target action for them. And then we've got the wider benefits. So this is the community area, access to nature opportunity areas, and the water quality and flood risk opportunity areas. But I'll show you the community access when I show you the mapping in a minute. And then we've got other useful layers. So these are layers that were produced not as part of the LNRS, but we're aware that while you're looking at the LNRS mapping, you'll likely want to be comparing it against other mapping that's not part of the LNRS. So we've got a list of layers there that you might find useful. This highlights the soil mapping that we use to inform some of the habitat mapping that we've done for the LNRS. And we're happy to add more to those other useful layers while throughout the LNRS's lifetime. This is not part of the statutory LNRS, so this can be edited all the time. And we've got a feedback form I'll show you in a minute in the appendices that you can let us know if there's things that you want added to it. We've also got an LNRS email address, which is just lnrs@devon.gov.uk, so that you can email us, the LNRS team, with any questions or issues that you're facing with it. Then we've got a section here about the mapping methodology. So we've got a paper here explaining how each layer was mapped and how to download the GIS layers. We are having a little bit of a technical issue with our open portal, which is a DCC open portal for downloading layers. That hopefully will be up and running by the end of the month. But those layers, it's denoted already which layers will become available for downloading so that you can use it within your own mapping. And if it's not downloadable via our open data portal, then it'll say where we got the data from. And then this is a little bit about the percentage coverage of Devon, which I explained previously. So the last tab we've got here is the appendices. So as I said, this was a huge collaborative effort to produce the LNRS. So obviously we have a lot of people to acknowledge, so we've got an acknowledgements page. We've got more information about how we developed the LNRS, and that includes the guidance notes that we've received from DEFRA. This section here is the bit that I was talking about, the feedback section. So we've got 2 feedback forms there. Because this is a new website, it's just gone live. We appreciate there might be teething issues, there might be things because it's so big that don't work right or whatever, anything like that. We want to know that. We don't want it just sat there until we review it not working. So we want people to let us know. So there's a feedback form for live issues. And then we've also got a feedback form for things that you would like included in future iterations of the LNRS. So that's things like if you know of data sets or projects that are going on that would be able to feed into the LNRS for the next iteration, let us know as early as possible, and contacts of who we can get in touch with. We know that Devon is vast and there's so much going on. We're sure that we will have missed some bits that are out there already. So we want to make sure that we're getting that information in during the lifespan of the LNRS in time for us to review it. We also got a planning and biodiversity net gain section here, which has a paper that we wrote with the planning authorities to help try and advise and give guidance on how to use the LNRS with planning, which a lot of people have asked us questions already about that. And I want to make it clear that the LNRS is not there to oppose development at all. It's just there to try and help guide how development can help nature, and as I said before about the biodiversity net gain, help guide where that should take place. We've also got a section here on the Devon landscape recovery projects, which are included within our mapping. A bit here about environmental sensitivities, so thinking about SSSIs, so that's special sites of scientific interest, historic environment, things like that, to make sure that the actions that you carry out don't conflict with those kinds of things. We've got the full glossary here, and then we've got targets and monitoring. So this is how the LNRS links with wider targets and monitoring. And since the public consultation, we've got a much improved search function. So this is another element that you can use if you're not sure where to start, but you know you love bees. You can type in bees here and search it, and it brings up all the relevant pages that have bees within them. And we know that during the public consultation, it wasn't picking up everything on the website, whereas now this search function does. So now I'll take you through to show you the mapping. So yeah, there's a little information disclaimer that comes up first that you have to agree to. So this talks a little bit about the DBRC county wildlife sites. So they are on the viewer because we need it. That's part of the requirements that DEFRA had, but you can't download that information, and you can't go against the DBRC. So that's the Devon Biodiversity Record Centre's commercial usage. So this is the viewer itself. If you're aware of the Devon Environment Viewer, it's similar looking. It's auto comes up with the legend, and that's really useful because every layer that's got a little arrow next to it means that there's more layers below them, and you can expand them. And if you wanted to see, for example, the special areas of conservation, you can't just click that one. You have to make sure that you click the ones above it as well. And you can see here, if I've missed a layer, it doesn't come up on the legend. Whereas if I click it, that comes up quicker than the map load. So it's good to know whether you've clicked the right layers. And in our instructions, we call these parent layers. So that's a really important thing to know. We are aware that that's frustrating. Unfortunately, it's not possible with this mapping tool to be able to turn the layers on above. So we've got the designated sites and statutory irreplaceable habitats here, the high opportunity areas here as well. So this is where all the actions are mapped. And then below that, we've got a merged BNG layer. So that is a merged layer of all the high opportunity areas, just to let you know whether you're in an area that could attract the biodiversity net gain strategic uplift. Then we've got the species opportunity areas, the water quality and flood risk areas, the community access to nature opportunity areas. So this one I'll show you. So this is what they look like. They are a 500-meter buffer around community centres and schools. So just to zoom in, click on one. So each bit we've mapped, they have a pop-up box that comes up that gives you a bit of information about how the layer was mapped for us and takes you through to the mapping methodology. A description of the layer itself. So here's the bit about it being a 500-meter buffer around community centres and schools. And it's got a headline action as well. So for this one, it's manage and create accessible wildlife-rich green spaces for wildlife and people. And then it links through to the web page so that you can find out more information and more detailed information on how you achieve those actions. And then it's all of them have a bit about the environmental sensitivities as well, which takes you through to the environmental sensitivities page on the website as well. And then we've got the opportunities for nature everywhere. So that's literally everywhere within Devon to show you that no matter where you are, even if you're not in one of the high opportunity areas, there are things that you can be doing for wildlife everywhere. And then we've got the other useful layers here. So we've got things like the planning layers, the parish boundaries, more information about connecting people with nature. So this is the Devon indices of deprivation. And yes, various different layers that we found useful to look at during the LNRS production, and hopefully it will be useful for you guys as well. We've also got down the bottom here is the delivery map that we were talking about earlier. So I'll just scroll out to show you. So this is the what you can add yourself to the mapping to let us know about projects that are happening. Um, and they each have a little pop-up box with the chosen information that people have given us on through that form. And you can choose, as I said, which bits you want to populate and which you don't. We encourage people to include email addresses when you can, because the point of the map is to try and let people connect with each other and work together on things. So it tells you a little bit about species and the benefits that the projects that they're doing have, and if they have a website, things like that, so that you can learn more information about what's going on out there. So this map is something that you add to yourself, but it does have to go through a process of checking, which one of my colleagues does every couple of weeks. So if your project doesn't appear instantly, don't worry, it's not that it's not being accepted, it's just in a sort of process of being accepted. But we have to have it that way in case people put things that aren't real on the map. And then we've got down here a little button that talks about unmapped species. So this is just highlighting the fact that we haven't got all of our species on here and that all of the species within the LNRS are of equal importance. It's not just those that are mapped. And it takes you through to the geographical species overview page. We've got a bit here that's about bookmarks. So if you're going to regularly use the LNRS mapping and you're interested in woody habitats and particular species, you can set the map up so that those layers are ticked on, and then you can save it as a bookmark so that when you come back to the mapping, you can just open that bookmark up again and you don't have to go through ticking on all the layers, the ones that you regularly see. And you can do multiple bookmarks. So you could do a watery one and then a woody one, whatever suits for your needs. And then we've got here the connection to add that delivery map that we were just talking about, and that takes you through to the form that I just showed you earlier. And then we've got a bit of information here about the LNRS itself and the mapping. And then the tools we've got up the top here, we've got a measuring tool, a printing tool, a search function. So this, you can type in your postcode and the map will zoom into that postcode. This is the near me function, which is the one that we wanted this viewer for. The legend, as I said, it automatically opens up, but you can shrink it and change it however you want. And this is for different base maps. We've also got a little search function here, and that search function searches within the layers lists. So, for example, if you wanted to search beavers, for example, it would then show you the layers that are relevant to beavers. So you don't have to open and scroll and find which ones. It's a quick way of doing it for you. There's also, when you're loading things on the map, let me just show you, a little green dot comes up here to let you know that the map is thinking about it. So that's good to know, because some of the mapping layers are quite big, so they do take a little while to load. We are getting a new mapping server for DCC. We were told that was happening in January, but now it's been pushed back to August. But that should help with all of DCC's mapping be faster, including this mapping. But I shall showcase the Near Me tool now. So with this, you can open the page, make it bigger. It's the same with the legend. You can do that too. So if you've got lots of layers on, you can open it up to make sure that the list is full. So with this, you can choose to either do a point, draw a line, or draw a polygon. And this is how we anticipate the community groups might engage with the mapping to begin with, at least. So for this example, I'm going to zoom in into near me. And you can put it on the map, you can choose your distance. So I'm going to say 3 kilometers. You can choose the different unit as well, but I'm going for 3 kilometers at the moment. You plonk it down on where you're interested in on the map. It draws this nice buff around it. If you've clicked on an address, it'll let you know, but if not, it'll say there's no mapped address. That doesn't mean it's not working, it just means that there's no postcode and house number there. And then it'll take a little while to do the analysis, but it'll suck in all the layers that we've created for the LNRS. So not these other useful layers, but all of the layers above that. It'll bring it into this little window here, which hopefully will populate in a minute. And it's a good way to let you know what's of relevance to you within your area. Hopefully it'll be quicker. While that's going on, so you can shrink this up as well in case that gets in the way of what you're looking at. And you can refresh it. So if you decided, oh, actually, I didn't mean 3 kilometers, I meant 2. There's a little refresh button that comes up here once it's loaded so that you can just click that so you don't have to redraw your area on the map. There we go. So it brings up all the mapping layers from these top lists that are relevant to your area. And you can click on them. It's all being a little bit slow now, sorry. So this is the little refresh button that I was talking about. There we go. Now it's looking like it'll do it. Right. So it brings up all the broadleaf woodlands that are within your area. And then when you click on them, it highlights them on the map when you're hovering over it, and it brings up the pop-up box. So again, this tells you a little bit about the source of the mapping data, the description of the mapping data, and the headline actions. So the headline actions takes you back to the relevant web page so that you can find out more information. So for here, you could be thinking, all right, there seems to be a lot of woody areas. I want to get involved with a woodland project. Let me find out more about what I can do for wet woodland in particular. So you click on there and it lets you know, takes you to that web page, and then you can click on there and find out the priority for it and the actions. It also worth noting, so for some things like the species areas, for example, here this area is relevant to the greater horseshoe bat. You just see the line like this, and you might be like, oh, I'm not sure which side of the line on this one. It's more obvious that it's in here. But if you're not sure, maybe the grey long-eared bat actually will be. Yeah, there we go. There's just a line through it, and you're not sure whether it's this side that's in the zone or the smaller side that's in the zone. How you can use it with the map is you click on the species opportunity areas, and then you look at what layer it was. So it's the grey long-eared bat connectivity zone. Click that layer on, wait for the mapping to do its thing. It's loading with its little button. And eventually it'll turn the layer on. There we go. So I said there we go, but I'm not convinced now that it's on. Turn the legend on. Yeah, it's this bit here. Oh, it's because I've clicked the wrong species of bat. There we go. That's a good example, isn't it? There we go. That's why the lines don't add up. Sorry, bear with me. There we go. So you can see that it's the smaller section that is relevant for grey long-eared bats rather than this side towards Dartmoor. So that's just to highlight how you can use the near me function with the other layers within the mapping. If you wanted to get rid of this buffer, you do have to click the little bin function, not just the cross up here. The cross up here will just get rid of your pop out of the near me. And then I'll just show quickly, I hope quickly, the polygon format as well. So for the polygon, for example, let's zoom in somewhere and pretend we own a little bit of land. Let's say we own this field and we want to know what's relevant around our field. You click on the map and you draw your little polygon and you double click for your last bit of your polygon, and then it'll draw the same sort of buffer around that area. So if you're a community group and you own that bit of land and you're thinking, what can we do for this bit of land? It's a good way in to sort of see what areas of the LNRS are relevant for you to then be able to look on the website to find out more information. And you can also use it in conjunction with the recovery delivery map to see what other projects are going on around your area. So for this one, for example, there's a group here. So click on that and say, oh, I see more trees are working within the area. They might be able to advise me on the trees within this area. And it helps for collaboration, learning from each other as well. So that's sort of how we anticipate community groups might use the mapping. And you can use the line is good for going along rivers, for example, or if it's your entire street that's joining in, doing something together, you can use that to draw up the street, to draw a buffer around your street area as well. And yeah, so it's using the mapping and the website in conjunction with each other. And the other element is search function within the website. So if your group is really interested in bees in particular, you could then search bees and find out what actions you could be doing for bees wherever it is you are in Devon. Yeah, I think I'll stop there. I appreciate I was talking for a long time, but it was still a whistle-stop tour. But yeah, I'll open it up to questions if that's all right. I'll stop sharing. so that I can see people.